If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew.
This is Joe.
And we're back with another topic episode. So this time we're coming at you with what does a person's favorite character say about them? We'll elaborate a little bit more on that by going into what do our favorite characters say about ourselves. And then lastly, we're going to top it off at the end with the discussion about is someone's hero somebody else's villain? So we've got a nice little three-piece banger for you. How you doing today, Joe?
I've had better days, but unrelated to the pod's been good. And speaking of which, we finally hit 1,000 followers the day that we're recording this. We're going to have more information for you. Obviously, you might be hearing this in retrospect, but very excited and very appreciative.
Yeah, the tricky part about social media and maintaining those numbers is just that, maintaining the numbers, because as of my most recent check, we dipped one below 1,000 again. So we need your guys' help if, this might be after the fact, but we need your help staying above 1,000. And if you listen to our last pod, you'll know that we are going to be doing a little bit of a giveaway once we can stay at and stay above the 1,000 follower threshold. That being said, time to get into our topics. So, first part of the topic, first discussion, what does a person's favorite character say about them? In my opinion, this is kind of like a Rorschach test of sorts. No, not the character, outside the character. But that it's a visual medium. So it's not only about the personality, the morals, the ideals, but, the design, the gimmicks, the powers. There's a lot of different things that can influence someone's favorite character. What that says about you, it's very individualistic. It's hard to say. Kind of philosophizing here. But, there's a lot of different ways you could take it because some people will like a character based purely on design. That could be their favorite. It could be as, vain or not vain, but, as shallow as that, like as simple as just like how the character looks. Look at Boba Fett, dude. Didn't do anything in those movies, but he looked badass. And that's one of the cooler characters in that whole series. But, otherwise it's just the writing, the depth for a lot of comic characters. But typically I'd say it's pretty reflective of how people kind of self-align morally, ideologically. A lot of people want to see themselves in the characters that they like, or they see a character that they want to improve upon themselves in the character they like, stuff like that. So, what do you think, Joe?
I never really thought about it from a visual medium, so I think that's a pretty cool take. I was thinking more about their personalities more so than like it being so visual, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think more often than not, it does say a lot about your personality because to me, the word favorite makes me assume that there would probably be like characteristics that you admire about that character or are already possess yourself that helps you better identify with or make that character feel like your favorite. So like, for example, if you find Batman to be your favorite character, it might be because maybe you like strategy and you think it's cool that he's a detective. I guess you could also ask yourself what else makes a person's favorite superhero their favorite. It could just be as simple as like their costume, their name, their power, but even that might give you some ideas as to whether about that person's personality. I feel like there have been many times where someone will share their favorite superheroes with me. And that usually gives me an idea as well as to how much you care about the superhero world in general. I feel like a person's favorite superhero only tells you as much about their personality as they are into superheroes in general. Like, for example, if somebody told me that their favorite character was Iron Man because they watched some of the movies, that might not really tell me as much about their personality as somebody who is deep into comics and told me that their favorite character is Lobo because they think space pirates are cool. So someone's favorite character can also tell you, if they're into the medium, what era they grew up in. Like, I feel like a lot of people from the 80s like the X-Men, a lot of people from the 90s like Spider-Man. I mean, everybody likes Spider-Man, but like when Todd McFarlane was kind of doing his thing, and like a lot of older folk like Batman and Superman, a lot of younger people like Black Panther, Scarlet Witch. So it's really cool to see that the different characters represent different times in pop culture. But to completely answer the question, yes, there are definitely types of groups of people with similar personalities that cling to certain characters. So another example, I mean, maybe it's just a stereotype, but you find like a lot of Second Amendment people like the Punisher, a lot of
Yeah.
patriotic people like Captain America, really cringe people like Deadpool. So your favorite character does say a lot about your personality. And I guess the more you're into it, the more it does say about you. But what's awesome about the genre in general is that there's almost a character for everyone to enjoy. So if you actually take the time to enjoy the medium, whether it's like TV, movies, comics, it's what makes it so relatable, personal, and makes for a good transition actually into our second question, which is, what does your favorite superhero say about your personality?
Yeah, so I mean, going off of that, I mean, I have a few. I mean, at a base level, you could probably say, Batman or Spider-Man's my favorite. But if you guys have listened before, or if you're new here, you know who I'm gonna go with, the original Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam. So, kind of, having to like kind of self-reflect and kind of think about why I like him so much. Because sometimes you just like a character, not like love at first sight per se, but you just kind of see a character and you're like, that's pretty badass. I like that. But going through and reading through a lot of the back issues, even though these characters do change over time. So I mean, that also is important too, I guess, that you didn't think of, is like even people could like the same character for a lot of different reasons. So, even just generalizing which character doesn't even really pinpoint your personality anymore. You got to think about the era, as you kind of mentioned, about not just how it determines who's your favorite, but, why they're your favorite, because these characters aren't static as much as you think they would be. But that aside, I guess I bring that up because my favorite characters had so many different characterizations over the years. I think I align more with well, honestly, up until 2011, really, that characterization of Captain Marvel and or Shazam is kind of more what I'm used to. So I guess it kind of says about me that, I just kind of like, it's like a simpler time kind of thing. I kind of like that. He was the big red cheese. He was around in the 40s. It was very black and white back then, good guy, bad guy, or, at least that kind of outlook on things. And, there's something kind of reassuring about that. I mean, obviously we have the good guy. We're rooting for him to take care of, the bad stuff we don't want to deal with. Which I mean, I wish things were as simple as that nowadays, but things are just so much more complex. And it's old timey. It's cheesy. I enjoy that. I'm a goofy guy, so I like a character that, is very wholesome, but also has a goofy personality. And I mean, at a fundamental level, the character design and the powers, I mean, the cape is sick, the giant lightning bolt, all of that, the powers. I mean, he's basically magic Superman, in a 12-year-old boy's body, basically, which that part I don't really, relate to as much, but it does give like an interesting kind of spin on Superman having Clark Kent is, a grown person, has his alter ego. And, prior to there being a Superboy, there was Billy Batson, which is kind of like a hybrid of the two in a sense. But, I also just value that it's one of the more powerful characters in comics. I grew up watching wrestling and stuff like that. So obviously the costumes, the gimmicks, the cheesiness all kind of speak to me. And, just big, buff, strong leader type characters are something that, you just kind of you want to relate to. I mean, obviously, I'm not built like Captain Marvel by any means, much as I wish I was. But, there's something to like idolize in that, I guess. A character as wholesome and strong and pure as that, it's something you kind of want to work towards in a way, even though I'm not like some like sociopath who literally thinks I'm gonna become a superhero by any means or start wearing spandex and capes. But, I think that's kind of what it means for me. How about you, Joe?
It's interesting that you say that like people's favorite characters is can be dependent on so many different things because like I just said like old heads tend to like Batman and Superman, but like there was that run in the 80s with Frank Miller and that could be the reason you like Batman, which is almost a completely different Batman than the Batman
Yeah.
back then. But I guess if you don't already know, it probably means you haven't listened to our other 75 episodes. So I'll spare you of that and start off by saying my favorite character is Superman. So that's, I'd say, a good starting point. He's my favorite character because he's wholesome, always does the right thing, and wins every time because of it. He leads by example, and even the other superheroes look up to him, which is another reason I find the character so impactful or inspiring. And those are only just a few reasons why he's my favorite. So, although I'm far away from being like a quote unquote Boy Scout. Side note, I was in the Cub Scouts growing up, but I do think some of the things that I've mentioned above say a lot about my personality too, because I do value a lot of things that are important to that character. And I feel like a lot of that stuff is derived from a place and time that I find interesting and also aligns with my values as well. So, for example, like my grandparents came from Poland to start a life in America, and it's just cool to know that like Superman was sent from another planet to do good for the United States. So there's just something about, a farm guy living a simple life that wants to do good by everybody that I find very alluring. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Superman being my favorite character says a lot about my personality as well.
Agreed. And yeah, I mean, it kind of helps too that, from an earlier age, you kind of moved out to a more rural area, drinking your milk, saying your prayers, kind of, you
Farm
kind of
country.
farm country. Yeah. Drive by the cows, all that. So, it kind of helps make sense. I mean, he's the GOAT. I mean, we kind of pick basically like the same character, but two sides of the same coin, but for different
In
reasons though,
addition to
too.
that, though, like these characters, Superman and Shazam, is also kind of what got us into the medium too. So I don't know that that part says a lot about our personality as it says more so like what our stepping stone is.
True, but some other things I guess I forgot that also kind of are determinant of, this kind of whole discussion in general is that, like of all the reasons we mentioned why you could like a character for a certain reason, it could be all or none of those reasons, to be honest. It could be completely arbitrary at times. I mean, our at its core, I mean, our favorite characters are our favorite characters, but people change over time, and sometimes just depending on your mood, your favorite character could change. Not everyone's as solidified in their choices, which I guess that might also say something else about you. But as kind of like a secondary kind of subclass of this, you could even break it down past just, Marvel, DC, this time period. But whether someone likes street level heroes more than just your standard superhero versus cosmic level heroes, I feel like you can see kind of a difference amongst fans just from, what kind of superhero they like. Like the people who like Daredevil more than the Silver Surfer and stuff like that, and vice versa. Different vibes for sure. And it's just like what causes that? Because it's very different storytelling, even though it's all comic books. But, it's an interesting thing to discuss here.
It does have a lot of range. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, it could really be anything. But, I mean, once you guys hear this, make sure to let us know who your favorite characters are. We'd love to know because, I mean, we try to ask our guests when they come on, and usually we get a pretty good range of answers. But I want to know who you guys like the best and tell us why.
Ultimately, we're looking to judge you.
Yeah, are you worthy of being a junkie, or are you excommunicated? Just
Yeah, you
kidding, we
like
won't do that.
Silver Surfer or Daredevil? Let us know.
That is a tough one. But that being said, I think we've exhausted all that we can say about that topic. I say let's bring it on home with our final discussion point here. Is someone's hero someone else's villain? So yeah, I mean, where do you stand on this, Joe, before I start rambling again?
I think the answer is mostly no, but also kind of. Not to harp on more Superman Deadpool, but in all seriousness, I would say no for the most part, but I know that some people can't stand Superman because he's so perfect and it makes him a boring character. And Superman fans like myself may not enjoy characters like Deadpool because they seem so edgy and loud, which is the opposite of what my favorite is. And but the problem with that is that Deadpool and Superman are both still considered superheroes, whether I like the character or not. So even though I think Deadpool's like the ops, he's not technically a villain. And so I don't think that if your favorite character is Deadpool, that he comes across as a villain to me. But maybe someone whose favorite character is a villain may feel differently than me, though. So who's to
Yes.
say? Like my favorite character is not a villain, so I can't really speak on it personally because I think that someone else's favorite character being a villain has a completely different perspective. And I'm sure someone who identifies with villains may feel differently than me. So who's to say?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of came at this, I guess, philosophically, maybe a little bit different, but, mostly the same with your second part of your argument there. Well, not really an argument, but you know what I mean. But I'd say yes in general, just because most things are split. I think that the spectrum of comic characters, as well as the spectrum of comic fans, are just so vast nowadays that there's just so much variability and possibilities for like character opinions and views anyways nowadays. I mean, look at anti-heroes. I mean, technically Captain America sees the Punisher as a villain, but a lot of people love the Punisher. So, I mean, anti-heroes are like a middle ground for people who do like villains, but also like superheroes. I mean, I like Deathstroke quite a bit. I mean, he's sometimes an anti-hero. I mean, look at Black Adam. He's never, there's a weird ground for that. But like you said, which I really liked, is that some people are more villain inclined. I'm sure there's a lot of sane, normal people who love the Joker out there. And I'm sure there's a lot of, cool-headed people who agree with Lex Luthor on a lot of things. So, I mean, obviously Superman is probably their villain. They don't want no aliens taking, what's theirs. So, I mean,
Stupid.
that's Lex Luthor at his core, dude. He's pissed off that this alien came here and is stealing all his glory.
Yeah,
They
that's
took my
facts.
glory. They took her jobs. They took her glory. This is my glory. I'm gonna be president and businessman. But that's Lex Luthor basically. So I mean, there's a lot of people who, hate the hero first, or they just like the villain that much in the first place. I definitely think there's a lot of people who see like our favorite heroes as villains. I don't really know how you see Shazam as a villain because he is like a 12-year-old wholesome child who's literally pure of heart. You'd have to be like some sick
You
freak.
have to be a sick person.
But I mean, Dr. Savannah hates him for some reason, so
Yeah,
and
there's
so does
people out there.
yeah, I mean, if you watch the movies, I get it. That guy, yeah, the first movie was all right. I didn't even see the second one, but I could see, kind of hating him after that goofy
Well,
bullshit.
Savannah's so old, like old people tend to think young people are punks. And so I could see like a villainous rivalry there. But I mean, like the other Shazam villains, like what do you really have against Billy Batson? Tell
Well,
me.
one's like a Nazi worm, so I don't know what his deal is. And
You'd
then,
have to be like a Nazi worm to think Shazam's a villain.
right. He did fight a lot of Nazis. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird argument. I guess you'd have to really be in a different place. So I'd say it is possible, but it's not typical. I mean, I guess you just really have to be kind of edgy and dark to think that the good guys are like bad or you're the government or I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't get it. Like, well,
I
well,
don't
I
get
mean,
it either,
Gotham
but like objectively,
Gotham PD don't like Batman except Gordon.
true.
So the cops, the government, and then like Nazis and unpleasant people in general, I guess. So
Well,
yeah,
he kind of
typically
teeters the line of anti-hero more so than like a Shazam and Superman.
yeah, well, more so just the term vigilante, I guess, because Batman ain't going to too many extremes other than, I mean, he's driving his fucking Batmobile through orphanages just to chase like a crocodile man. But I mean, it's just the fact that like he has no handlers and doesn't give a shit about the law, even though he's trying to uphold it at the same time. So I could see like people of Gotham being pretty pissed off about Batman, but I don't know. it's kind of a weird argument that we could spiral all day on this, and I don't feel like we need to. But I feel like we've got our point across on that one, don't you?
Almost. If there was
Yeah,
like a real life non-superhero hero
they'd piss me
saving
off.
the day, but under his own moral code, dressed up as a bat, do you support him or not?
I don't know, bro. It depends how close it is to me, I guess. I live in the suburbs, but if there's like a Batman of Detroit, I mean, I'd feel like that novelty is pretty cool. But fundamentally, I probably would go down there even less. So, because I don't want to get caught up in the middle of their bullshit. Because if there's a guy in a bat suit, that there's got to be someone like matching his energy on the opposite side. And I don't, I don't need the Joker of Detroit and like all that going down while I'm just trying to like hit the roundabout. Like that's too much for me to handle. I wouldn't really want that, but kind of like being like an observer from like, I don't know, half hour away, I'd be kind of tight. I'd be But if I'm up in it, hell no.
Let's fight some crime.
I ain't doing shit.
Shazam would be very disappointed. But I think that concludes everything I got on the three questions.
Yeah, I think that suffices. So with that, do you want to let them know what we're doing next time?
Marvels, Marvels, Marvels. So we've done so many DC events. This one isn't one that has like six sequels. So I'm pretty excited to just be one and done and read a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good Marvel event. So I don't know too much about it. Haven't read it, obviously, but excited to and let you guys know what we think.
I'm super pumped about this one, actually. I love Alex Ross work. We didn't read it for the pod, but I've read Justice. If you haven't read that, that one's a banger. So this is kind of like Marvel's, that's the name of the book. It's like Marvel's version of Justice in a way. So it's pretty dope. I haven't read it, obviously. I've seen, snippets and art and stuff like that before, but I'm very excited to review this one. But, to keep up with what we're reading, to ask us questions, to, just, hit us up in general, make sure to go to CBJ Pod. I mentioned it earlier. That's our Instagram. That's the best way to reach us. We do have a YouTube page. We don't talk a lot about it because it is just another audio feed. We're not doing video content at the moment. Depending on how things go, we'll see. But if you don't do traditional podcast platforms, you can check us out there. That's Comic Book Junkies or at CBJ Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, all that, the algorithm, 5 stars, reviews, ratings, all that stuff. You can do it if you want. If you don't, doesn't matter. Well, it does matter because it helps the algorithm, but we appreciate you just listening in general. We really do appreciate it. And if you haven't yet, tell a friend. Make sure to send them our Instagram page so that we can get over 1,000 and keep chugging along. And other than that, thank you, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the topic. We'll see you next episode.